Welcome to this breaking news edition of Vikings Now podcast. Jim Rich along with Vikings radio analyst Pete Bercich. And very rare to see you smile, but I am assuming you think this is a good day for the Minnesota Vikings to get a contract done like this with one Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with how this entire offseason went, there's still some wait and see as to how J.J. McCarthy develops and ultimately what kind of a quarterback he becomes. But if you look, if you just go back to that game in Green Bay when Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles until now, these are the big picture things that everybody was wondering about. Who's going to be the quarterback? Are they going to re-sign Kirk? What are they going to do with JJ and extending JJ? So what we've seen now is kind of how they want that to play out. And, kudos to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah for getting it done and coming out of the woods, if you will, after that uncertain 12-month period and saying, okay, JJ's our guy. He's the highest non-quarterback, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. I think JJ did a great job of handling the negotiations. On his end, there was no ill will, no saber rattling with unfollowing on Twitter and all that garbage. It was, it was done very professionally. And now you have that template in place, right? You've got the quarterback in waiting who, you got 3 or 4 years where you're not going to have to pay him a ton of money. And by that time, the salary cap could hopefully expand where JJ could realistically live through 4 years, so to speak, of this contract and not have to renegotiate maybe till 5 or 6, 5 years down the road. Ultimately he'll be a free agent again. But they've put themselves in a position. Now whether or not it'll work out, well, we'll see, right? We're going to see. But the pieces are in line, and those big questions that you had coming out of last year are answered. So it's all a good thing to have this done, obviously, before going into training camp.
Now, obviously, money talks, and that certainly is the biggest part of this negotiation. But how much conversation do you think the Vikings had to have with Jefferson once they said, okay, we're moving on from Kirk, we're going to draft you a quarterback, we also have a backup here that'll step in if McCarthy doesn't, pick it up as quickly as we hope he does. We'll go with Darnold. How much conversation do you think there was to reassure Jefferson that he's not going to be in a situation where he was those last 6 games where he had quarterbacks that couldn't get him the ball and nearly got him killed a couple of times?
Well, that's an interesting, it's an interesting point that you bring up. It's like the last 6 games. It's like, well, that's kind of where we saw Jefferson last year, right? He missed quite a bit of the season with that hamstring, and whether or not that, the length of time that he was out was tied to this or somehow tied to this negotiation, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know, Jim. You when you have a player that wants to be paid that much money, that has to be the number one focus for them, because they have to know either I get the money or they bring somebody else in and pay them. So it's one of those things where, okay, we'll heap all this salary cap on you, but at the same time, now it is your responsibility to carry this team. It is your responsibility now to be that leader, right? You're the guy that we're going to have to go to. You can't, on one hand, say I want to be the highest paid player in the NFL, whatever. You are getting paid all this money. Right. And then the other side, be super concerned about what we're going to do at all these other positions. Because if you get what you want over here, you just can't get what you want over here, right? Correct. So it's ultimately he needs to take care of himself and his family, and he's doing that. Whether, does this contract make it impossible to build around him? No, not in this day and age, and with the way the salary cap has been jumping up. So, again, that goes back to the young quarterback and, all these other things that the Vikings have put in place this offseason that will hopefully, make the next 4 years a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that is the thing I was going to ask about next is how does the expectations, because here in Minnesota, we saw it with Joe Mauer, right? Everybody loved Joe until he got paid, and then everybody like, oh, well, you should be winning us multiple World Series rings, and what are we doing here? And you're not getting a base hit every single time. So what kind of expectations are there now for Justin Jefferson versus before, when it was just like, wow, this is really cool. This guy catches everything. But now fans are going, see that money, just like they turned, some turned on Kirk, saying, oh, he was holding us back because we couldn't spend the money. So how is the world going to change for Justin Jefferson in your eyes?
I don't know how much that's going to change, because people have high expectations of him and his talent. He is now, again, when you say, I want to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, then you better be the best football player who's a non-quarterback in the NFL. I think the expectations and the money really go hand in hand. I mean, that's where our expectations of him should be. The question is whether or not, and we can only assume this, but the question is whether or not his expectations are that, right? I mean, and that's one of the things that GMs and the coaches, that's why you look at it so deeply, is to say, is he the kind of kid that just wanted to make it to a payday and then that's it, right? He made it, he did it, and the rest of it's just, no. I mean, I don't think anything. The reason he got to where he was is because he's not that kind of a person, I don't think. So, you're a professional athlete. Those expectations are always going to be there. They should be there. We as fans, you should demand a lot out of the players and what they're putting on the field, and have high expectations, because, fans are investing quite a bit in the team itself. So I don't mean to be, not unreasonable expectations, but that's where I feel like someone like myself and the guys that we do the radio and the TV, and then, obviously with you at 10:30 at night on Sundays, is to say, hey, this is the problem. This may look like a problem, but it's not. This is the problem over here, to try to just, put the worry or put the concern where it should be, put the criticism where it should be, put the question marks where they should be. There hasn't been a question mark on Justin yet. I mean, the only question was, when's he coming back from the hamstring? That was it. Yep. And outside of that, there hasn't been a single thing to make you question this young man. And I mean, expectations are going to be high, but he's getting paid, and let's go.
All right. Now, it is only June, and we have, mini camp and all of that, and training camp and all that. But in your mind, how do you see this Vikings offense now that we're post Kirk Cousins and you brought in Aaron Jones? Are we going to think, do you feel that the offensive coordinator and O'Connell are thinking about, you know what, we may have to be a little more ball control while we get either Darnold or McCarthy up to speed, and we're going to change things up a little bit? Or where do you see this offense trying to be by week 4?
Well, here's the thing: the running game has been the kind of the enigma, or the there's no we don't have a lot of worries about the passing game, and with Cousins and with the right people, we can do it. The running game, though, for the last couple of seasons, if you go back and look at what needed to improve from 2 years ago and what needs to improve from last year now, short yardage running game and goal line running game still are a problem, right? They're not where they need to be, nor are they where I think the coaching staff wants them to be. So it will be very interesting to see if we build a running game around Aaron Jones that mimics what he did so well in Green Bay. What Aaron Jones does, his vision is phenomenal. And that means he's doing a lot of, it's not just the outside plays, it's the long zone cutback plays. They give him a lot of space to work what he does well. And he's also very good at getting you a yard or two just, straight downhill. So the identity of the running game changed, I think, a little bit last year. I think we found that both of our guards did a pretty good job of pulling, and they were physical at the point. They could kick out, they could do those things. So will we get more toward that? And maybe how much of that Green Bay running game are we going to borrow? But the offensive line and the running game, they need to come up with an identity. They have to have 2 or 3 running plays and the variants off of it that they do very, very well, that you can go to when you absolutely have to. Because, I mean, if you just look at the last 2 seasons and how different things would have been, had we been able to convert some 3rd and 4th and 1s. I mean, we lost a couple games just because of that, and not to mention the turnovers. So, the running game needs an identity. They need to figure that thing out. There has been zero talk about the offensive line, obviously, with everything else that's been going on. But I think right now is the perfect time to start bringing it up, Jim. I think it was a great question. The offensive line needs to take that next step up, and they need to come up with some kind of identity, especially on the ground.
All right. So you look at where the Vikings were at the end of the season, and it was a crossroad, and it was a major crossroad because you had the Cousins situation. You had the Jefferson situation. You had a lot of players, Danielle Hunter, that were to get paid, and the team couldn't do it. How well do you think Kwesi and Rob Brzezinski and their staff negotiated this? To me, it seems like they didn't miss a beat, and it seems like you said, we don't know how it'll play out, but it certainly looks like the thought and the planning has moved this franchise in the right direction while retooling the money and getting themselves out of some big-time contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big one obviously was Cousins, and they got that figured out. And the Atlanta Falcons helped us figure that thing out pretty easily, as far as them throwing all 4 years of money at them, where the Vikings were like, no way, there's no chance. I think they've done a very good job when you take a look at Jonathan Grenard coming in, Andrew Van Ginkel coming in, Blake Cashman coming in. That front seven is going to look a lot different than it did a year ago. I think they did everything they possibly could with the money that was available. Going forward, you're going to have more of that money available. You're paying Cousins or paying Jefferson a lot of money, but you're going to have some versatility there, and that's the question: is are you going to build with free agency because these are younger free agents we're bringing in, or are we need to get more out of the draft? And I think that's where Dallas Turner really is important to this franchise. I mean, obviously McCarthy is, but Dallas Turner is as well. And Dallas Turner, we need him to be a guy that just owns and plays that outside linebacker position with a vengeance for the next 4 or 5 years, because we need that out of the draft. We haven't necessarily had that out of the draft. And that's kind of if you can combine getting a couple of really good football players in the draft every year, and then with the free agency, you're really going to turn. I think you have a chance to really turn this thing around. That's where guys like Metellus, to me, are the key, because Metellus, they redid Metellus' contract. He didn't get paid a ton of money, obviously,
right.
But he fits the system. And the Minnesota Vikings with Brian Flores are getting more out of Jonathan Metellus than any other team in the NFL is going to do. So just keep bringing in those players that fit your system, bring in the players that that can operate and do the things that you want out of them. And you're going to have success, and you're not going to have to overpay to bring in guys with, long lists and long resumes and all that kind of stuff to fill holes. I mean, because that's what we've seen in the past.
All right, circling back to Justin, what has to change for him? You talked about the leadership role. Is that going to be the biggest difference for him? Because statistically, I mean, he's done things that no other quarterback or wide receiver, rather, has done in the history of the National Football League in the short window that he has been a player. What now has to change in your mind now that he has these dollar signs behind his name?
I don't think on the field he has to change anything. I mean, he's that kind of a player. He's not afraid to go up. He's not afraid to get hit. I think the what he did so well, or what was so important for him those first 3 seasons, was he never missed a game, right? So for me, my thing right now is just for him to stay healthy. Not that he's an injury risk by any means, but he just needs to be on the field. When he is on the field, he is a definite game changer. Is he going to have to be more of a leader, be more of a leadership role, all those things? Yeah, as he gets older, I think absolutely. But I don't think he's going to have to change a whole lot now that he has been paid this kind of money. And I think that's the best part about this signing is it's like all you want to do is say, hey, JJ, just be you. Just keep doing what got you here and everything will be fine. And that's the safest bet you can make, because just giving a guy a pile of money doesn't mean he's going to turn it on, right? It's not a safe bet no matter how much money you give him. So, for JJ, be who you've been. I mean, that's the beauty of making JJ and keeping JJ around, and that's how important he is to this team and this franchise. I mean, he's that good of a player. He's tough. He's not afraid to go across the middle. I mean, you look at his growth from 2 years ago against Detroit when they kind of shut him down a little bit by jamming him at the line and having a safety over the top. And by the end of the season, he knew how to get around that and how to defeat that. So as a player, he continually works hard and he grows, and he puts new arrows in the quiver, and he's able to adapt his game to what defenses are doing to him. He doesn't need to change a damn thing. Just keep catching the ball the way you're doing, do everything that you've been doing. And that's, I think, again, is the best part of this signing, is that, he doesn't need to change a thing.
Awesome. Pete Bercich, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
We'll let you get back to summer.
You're looking good. You get some of that gray out. What have you been doing there? What's going on with that?
Well, a great deal at Costco. Just was dumping in gallons, and we're trying to thin it back a little bit right now.
Sounds good, man.
You got to do what you got to do. Pete Bercich,
hey.
I'm really excited, looking forward when you're going to be back in studio, so we could continue critiquing my look as well as the Minnesota Vikings.
Sounds good.
All right, that's Pete Bercich. That'll do it for this Vikings Now podcast. Comment away. You agree with Pete. You agree with where we went. And he's checking us out. There he goes. He's folding up his computer and saying goodbye. And we're doing the same thing. We'll see you later.